From One of One Production Studio, located in Fort Lee, New Jersey, this is The Art of Music Tech. And now, here's your hosts, Fela and Dennis.
Let's go, and welcome to the Art of Music Tech podcast. I'm your host, Fela. Over there is my co-host, Dennis, and today we have two people in. I'm just, they've worked with legendary people, and they do legendary things. We have Lisa Pienot, legendary photographer in New York City, New Jersey, just killing it with acts like Lauryn Hill, in Living Color, and so many more.
Steve Vai.
Just Steve Vai.
You can just add,
Toto. Eric
and
Gales. hundreds of others.
Just everybody.
Mac Avenue Records. Almost every record label you could think, every production company you could think. I've worked also as a house photographer for the past 6 years for the Chance Theater. The Iridium, where I met you and Dennis, of course. I housed there for 4 years with you. And pretty much a ton of New York venues right now. South Orange Performing Arts Center. SoPac is where I call home.
Uh-huh.
And I've been doing about a year now. Everything for them, including their member receptions and all their parties, along with all of their acts.
You also do Yankee signings before?
I started out in the beginning, before I was into live performance. What I did was I worked for promoters like Steiner Sports. I worked for Major League Baseball. I worked for NFL. And I do player signings where 1,000 people come and they get their picture taken with the celebrity or the sports figure, and I print on site. I am the only mobile lab that prints on site. 275 photos an hour I put out for the promoters.
Hey, let's go. So if you need that kind of service, you know who to hit up now. We'll have all the information in the summary, of course. And her good friend and our good friend of the studio in New Jersey and Fort Lee, repping it all. We have Aalics Bronson.
Hello.
The stage manager to other acts like, I'll let you go into the deepness of how Chronics. I'm going to start you off.
Yeah, Chronics is my main act right now.
Yes.
Living Color. I've worked with Lauryn Hill, and a few others.
Mm-hmm. A ton.
You just keep naming names and you forget a few after a while.
Exactly.
With no disrespect to any of
Oh
them.
yeah, exactly. It's just you doing a lot of work and it keeps going. It is.
My focus is what's in front of me.
In front of you, exactly. Same here. So good to have you guys here. You're both friends as well.
Yes.
So I'll let you guys explain.
Years ago, when I first got into music, after I finished a bunch of work for Jensen Communications, I was looking to jump on a tour, and I had done some work for Vernon Reid, and Vernon asked me if I was interested in Vivid's 25th anniversary tour, and I graciously accepted and started working with Living Color. And when I did, one of the people I was introduced to that would be working on the same tour was Aalics Bronson. And basically, the two of us became a work together where I was the visual person doing live stills for their performances, and Aalics pretty much was teching for Doug Wimbish and pretty much running everything on the stage and doing everything.
All right, so you were stage managing Aalics on that tour?
Yeah, so I'm starting with that because I was off and on with teching for Doug.
Right.
All right.
I was his bass tech.
And you're a bass player by trade.
Yes.
Just to let everybody know. So, I mean, because if you're dealing with the Wimbish, come on.
And that was another act that I also worked for was John Mark's Express, which is Alex's own band.
All right.
And I did all the promotion and tour posters and whatnot when they went to Europe also. So I've worked with him on his own project and his own CDs.
Uh-huh.
And Aalics has a new project coming up and a new album coming up that I'll be doing all the promotional stuff for,
nice.
and it's going to be great. It sounds great from what I've heard.
So far, so good, but it takes time.
You play bass, right?
Yes.
And any other instruments you play?
Yes.
I started out on violin.
Nice.
Whoa.
That was my first instrument.
Okay. So you went to school?
Yeah, when I was younger,
Education,
school,
all that.
I was in violin, moved to cello, saxophone.
Oh.
That's a wide range.
Yeah,
From strings
it's
to
a strings to
horns.
horns. It's like a
Okay.
whole weird transition.
You still play though, right?
Not as much because bass, yes.
Okay,
bass because that's just where my main thing. But yeah, that was the getting a grips of all types of music and sound. I didn't realize it then, but it's like it is a big jump playing a string instrument, then you're playing a horn.
Yeah, the chops.
Yeah,
You have to have for both.
So I was like,
okay.
I couldn't split my mind for that, so I went back to the string.
I got you.
I was
Gotcha.
like, bass is a little easier in that idea what I was looking at.
And so what age was that you decided to concentrate on bass?
17, 18.
Okay.
Started out, a lot younger, 10, 12.
And that's being in bands and just being around the music.
Yeah,
You
just
were
being around the music, growing
pretty
up,
much?
family, growing up in Kentucky.
okay.
And my aunt was the music director of the church.
Oh,
Nice.
okay.
So it's like that's the
Every
there's always
Sunday.
every Sunday, I was in the choir,
Nice.
and you're at rehearsals, and everyone in my family played something. So there was
Your
always-
parents, you mean?
Well, yeah, my grandparents, parents, aunts, and uncles, cousins.
Oh,
everyone.
okay. So that
or my great grandmother, played piano. There was always a piano. Someone's playing something.
Was anybody take it to a professional? I know your aunt, you said, was the teacher.
Yeah, well, she was a music director at church, and then not as professional as what it is now. But most definitely,
musical family.
So it was really interesting leaving Kentucky to come here, and then
Exactly. Take us. How did you get here from Kentucky?
fashion. It was a whole nother life.
Fashion.
Yeah, they have a degree in fashion.
Right. Alex has a
FIT?
degree in
FIT.
FIT.
Oh,
went to
wow.
FIT?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Aesthetics too. Nice.
So
And he worked in advertising,
worked in
marketing,
advertising, worked on Wall
design.
Street. I lived different lives, but I was always came back to music. Music was
Okay. Maine, that's your...
And when did you make the transition back to music and being in the city?
I was in advertising for a while, and it was a point where I was a producer, and it was music, so it was kind of like, you know what, it's just constant, and it's kept dragging me. But it's like, I then got opportunity to start playing more. First tour, and I'm like, peace, I'm out.
okay.
And what was that first tour?
Well, there's a couple different ones, but. Wow, I have to think about it. Think about this for a second.
Or what band? Or
Yes,
what
that's
guy-
what I was
Lotus?
thinking. That's what I'm thinking.
Was Red Lotus?
No, that wasn't the first tour. That was one of my. It's in my head now. Oh my gosh, True Mystic Sound System was a dub reggae hip hop band.
Oh.
What a mix.
Right. And I was the only live instrumentation was bass. It was bass, and then there was a
guy
not a
dub
DJ.
plating the.
Dub plating and
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was,
You want to explain a little bit about what the dub plate is? Like I had never seen it live till I moved here. Actually, even
it's-
in New York,
well,
that's a
it's-
bigger.
It's kind of it's like there's a lot of subsonics
Yes,
within this coming from the reggae culture.
and quite a delay.
There's a lot of delays and a lot of movement. It's a movement of sound, but it's in delays and verbs and stacking.
Yes,
Again,
a
the
lot of stack.
subsonics. It's like the subtextures of sound, and it's really into you can go into drum and bass and a few other things, which I expanded into from that with True Mystic Sound System, working with a guy called Gerald,
Okay.
which was he was like the godfather of drum and bass, and taking it. So my point of playing bass was knowing the distance between 0 and 1 in a digital element and making it more live.
Yeah, giving it soul.
Right.
Basically,
it's like, because my motto is if you don't feel it, don't play it.
Exactly.
So true.
So,
So true.
Exactly.
But yeah, that was my whole experience. And
Yeah,
with,
but
with True Mystic, and it was like, working with a band with live singers and hip hop, but there was no drummer. There was a guy just samples and loops. And then understanding that it's, what samples and loops and how they're created and playing it within the melodies of that. So it's pretty interesting. But with that being said, then stepping into this tech world, production world, working with Doug Wimbish from Living Color. We were friends, and it was, we met years back, think about that, at a Joe Satriani concert.
Oh, wow.
and that we also share the same birthday.
Right.
Really?
Yeah,
Yes.
So it was one of those kind of a match of friendships, and brotherhood is really interesting. But as a player, and then hanging out was like my first moments of like, oh my God, it's Doug Wimbish. And it's like, yo, can I take lessons? No. His response was no.
Okay.
But we can hang out.
Okay.
Well, at least that.
But and I took that as better.
Yeah.
Right.
As lessons, because lessons, you got an hour, don't talk to me. After that, more so as, let's hang out and show you a few things, you can learn something. And that was that.
And that's pretty much, you think, his method of teaching anyway, was like, just look at what I do, and then it'll pretty much teach you, kind of, in a way.
I think he wanted you pretty much to do it on your own.
Yeah, his teaching is not about, I'm going to do this and I'm going to show you. Like,
Sure,
it's like you're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yourself.
So, yeah, even when I was teching for him, and that was the whole Lauryn Hill thing, my first gig was in front of 80,000 people.
Yes.
And he turns around during this, he's like, I'm sorry. And you don't understand, well, why do you say I'm sorry? And you look up and you're like, oh, this is a whole different world.
Yes.
This ain't the club in the village.
Yeah.
No.
No,
it's not.
This is a whole different thing.
You look behind you, and there's 80,000 people behind you. Whole different world.
With that, and answering before, Lisa and I met during that time period, and it was
Lauryn Hill time period.
It was like Lauryn Hill, Living Color.
We were on both tours at the same time, crossing over.
And it was just like, what? It's like, okay, well, you're working. It's almost like you're working together a lot. It's like that becomes a partner almost.
That's exactly what we became as work partners.
Like work partners, and you're just pushing to, what's next? What do you have? Do you need help with something else? Do you got this over here? But within that is like growing in the industry, playing, and then some people have a problem as an artist playing and then switching over to being production tech or some sort of,
You never had that problem. You
No.
just transitioned right from one to the next,
Diversified.
Well, I mean, it's like, some people look down on some production and some tech work, in general. I'm kind of like, well, if you're looking at it that way, I'm looking at it as I may be the low man on the totem pole, but I'm holding this motherfucker up.
Together. Yeah.
Excuse
right.
my language, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you can't. Oh, no, we good.
But it's like, because it's like, if I don't do it, then it's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can, as you can be the baddest of the baddest or whatever, but, I have to know something.
I mean, I've been in the room, at a sound check, that's gone 3 hours long, and when Aalics tells the act, okay, you're done, let's go, it's live, that act stops and listens. I've never seen anybody, especially when we're on tour with Living Color, shut the boss, Vernon Reid, down, but when Aalics said no, he stops. He's very, very good.
Well, I mean, this is a sign of respect. Like, oh, okay, we've reached. Because if you say something, that means, okay, everything, it's the respect of it.
Everybody listens.
It's past the fan stage.
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh, please.
It's like who you're working with is kind of like, what, well, that's great. And some people don't understand that. There's a conversation I just had a few days ago with someone. Like, there are conversations like we're having now that you can't have with
normal people.
When I say everyday normal, someone has a 9 to 5 is not going to understand how this,
or how our lives run. They think it's glitz and glamour and whatnot.
This is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
No.
Not at all.
Even as an artist, I think part of what I do as a stage production and stage manager is I'm the liaison between art, knowing the artists how they feel about stuff and stage what needs to be done.
Yes.
And that eases the artist more because it's like, you know what, you don't have to talk about it because I know. Now, you know, I have my own reputation that when I come through, trust me, you know that I come through. Okay.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And
Cut through.
Yeah, and there's nothing extra. Don't bring extra to the table. You know, because even as a bass player, you know, as a musician, it's like I've learned even more so less is more.
Always.
A lot of times, yes.
You know,
Always.
and
Always.
that approach musically, you know, I bring to the stage as well. It's like first thing is like how many bodies on stage and for what.
Wow. So you can't do too many hip hop shows because it's a lot of bodies on that stage.
For no reason.
For no reason.
But then
and
you know
talk
what?
shit all the time.
But you haven't been to a show that I stand on.
Exactly.
Or in front of somebody that I photographed because I
have
did
to
nothing
tell
but
people.
hip hop for a few years.
But I literally, there's management to tell people when you see him, he tells you what to do. Please do it.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
correct.
You know, like I have a voice that's one level, but then I have a stage voice, and when it hits that level, then it becomes a whole nother issue. And we don't need issues. We need results.
Exactly.
So, you know, and again, it goes back to as a player, you know, if the bass player falls out, the whole thing is
Thing's
gone.
done.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter. You
rhythm
can't
section.
say anything.
One of the greatest things I ever saw Aalics do was take a bunch of kids called Unlocking the Truth, who I met when I worked for Living Color, and Aalics met them the same night. And I think it was Irving Plaza the first night.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it was Irving Plaza, and they were a bunch of 12 and 13-year-old kids with more talent than some of the biggest acts I've ever worked for, and they put their faith in Aalics.
You know, that was a transition of some people working with, you know, Living Color. Let's say LC, I'll call it.
Yeah,
That's just the thing.
Living Color.
But met these young dudes, you know, from Brooklyn. And if you haven't heard, there's a trio, and they're metal. And it's pretty insane. We've actually we've taken on the road from opening for Guns N' Roses Slash
Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Manson. I've been on the road with them, taking them on
Living
tours,
Color.
Living Colors. Nice. So, you know, it's an experience.
See 14-year-old kids opening up for Marilyn Manson or Stone Temple Pilots or Slash.
Stadiums.
Yes,
Yeah.
stadiums.
It's pretty insane.
And to watch him run a stage full of 14-year-old children, and they
Bonnaroo a
listened.
couple years we did Bonnaroo opened up. There was the first young act to
At
open
Bonnaroo.
Nice.
That's a big fest.
Yeah, it was a big
Yep.
festival. That's on live on YouTube now too.
Nice. We'll look for the link for that.
Yeah, I'll pull the link for that. But
Yeah.
that's- you can see me in the cowboy
Alex
hat.
running
I have
around.
a cowboy hat
Yes.
that I wear. My leather cowboy hat that.
Oh yeah,
You know,
it's on Facebook
it's
pretty heavily.
Everybody's like, you know, it's like you don't know who I am by name. It's like the dude with the
hat.
The cowboy with the
how.
the cowboy hat on.
Cowboy hat on.
You know, and if anybody
doing a
questions-
metal show, you're like, what?
Yep.
What's going on?
What's going on?
But you know, and that keeps me. That's for me being grounded because I'm from Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know,
Fellow
it's like-
Southerner.
Right,
Hello.
it's like I'm-
He had a
and-
pet bull when he was a kid on a
so,
leash.
Yeah, so I had a strange life. Not a strange life. I lived a good life.
Oh, please, you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
the
still do.
countryside and
Still
the
do.
city.
It's like,
Yeah.
you know, if you want to call it blessed or whatever, it's like, you know, again, it's like some things you never think about being, you know, again, coming from Kentucky, and it's kind of like, you know, where do you live, man? I live in New York, you know, and what do you do? I work with the biggest artists in the world, you know, on certain levels, and it's kind of like, where am I at? You know, then we come home, family's like, you know, you got to take out the trash on Sunday. Take out the, it's like,
Exactly.
you know,
Down back down there.
Daddy's a rock star. No, Daddy has to check out the trash. You quit
That's
playing.
that's
It's
right.
It's- yeah, that's all. This is.
You have to stay humble,
You got to be humble with it, you know. But yeah, the journey is interesting.
and it's
That's
always a
beautiful.
hustle. Alex and I'll both say the two of us didn't get to where we were by sitting around and waiting for people to come to us. It was always a hustle.
A hustle. Oh yeah, if you're in New York, New Jersey, you hustling.
Yeah,
Hey, if you're
gotta-
staying here,
yeah, if you're living here, and it's like the hustle alone is just paying rent.
That's it.
exactly,
You know,
exactly.
it.
Every
You know,
month,
you know, it's like,
ooh, I hope I can get it.
It's like that, you know,
So usually
you're
what
looking
I'll
6
do-
months in advance on tours or you know, or shows or what's happening because you know the journey is it's not as easy as people like, I got a 9 to 5. No.
Yeah, you can't depend on what monies are coming in.
Every Friday.
Yeah,
You
every
never
Friday.
know.
Every
It's
Friday
the
check.
check. It's not going to happen.
Direct
You never
deposit.
know.
Exactly. So when did the Cubbyhole studio come about?
Well, the cubby hole. So yes, what had happened is I got tired of paying
Yeah.
for the bigger studio.
Same here.
And with technology moving the way it did, and I'm already the late bloomer in it. Opportunity presented itself.
Yeah.
It's like we lived in apartments and they burned in different, in the area, and we found this place, and it just happened to have a
Full finished basement.
That had a separate entrance.
Even better.
Right.
Okay.
And here in Fort Lee. To a point where I was like, hey, I've always built onto it because I'm playing, but then it's like, when I'm not playing is where really it takes place, or where if I'm not working, but what do I do to continue? And I said, like I said, with technology and stuff, so I was like, you know what? I have a lot of stuff everywhere, so I just started bringing stuff back, stopped paying for storage,
Right. Oh,
and was like, I'll take this and just start learning, the ins and outs of doing it yourself.
Yes.
Like completely, not just, I can pay for it, but to actually
Do it yourself.
If I decide to wake up today, or tomorrow, whatever, like, what, or in the middle of the night, I can go and actually cut tracks. Or I can
Exactly.
or then now what I've realized even more so, to the point where I can work internationally.
Even though you're home.
Oh yeah, you can send tracks
I can
all over the
send-
world.
right.
Oh,
And
man.
that's what, and it's,
It
and
just
it's
really
like, and
opened
it's
up.
it's not a new concept, but,
Yeah.
but it become a lot easier.
But to do
Much
it from
easier.
your
Yeah.
home
Studio,
studio,
right.
and it actually sounds broadcast,
Right.
like
It's
radio ready.
Yeah, it's radio ready.
That was not even a prospect
10 years ago.
10, 12 years ago. Yeah.
10 years ago.
I mean, when I was at Full Sail in 2002, that was when the M1 came out.
Right.
That
Right.
hissy thing.
Right. And
so the concept of doing an album still at home was like, no.
because you need it so much, and
So much.
and even the programs like Pro Tools and everything was not easily and readily available for anyone.
Yeah, you needed the hardware.
Yeah,
You
the
needed
hardware
the
with it.
HD2 and all that
You know,
kind of stuff.
And,
to go
and
with
I
it.
wasn't into that,
Yeah.
But I think the transition came when Logic was actually able to you get on your computer just like $200.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was kind of like enticed to kind of push that to push that envelope to move in that direction.
Exactly.
And even though again it's like I'm a late bloomer, but it was one of those things like you either have to catch up, because nowadays everything is turned over. Your life is digital.
The same thing for me. It came out
Oh,
of
yeah. And for
out
you
of
as a
photography,
photographer.
Yeah, right.
coming out of a dark room and shooting film. Now, I come out of a show, and like Lauryn had asked Aalics one day, I left. After 4 or 5 songs, I got what I needed. I went home. She said to Aalics, "Where did Lisa go?" He said, "She's halfway home already. In 45 minutes, you're going to have all of your stuff from tonight."
Mm-hmm.
I shoot, go home, edit in 45 minutes. I send a WeTransfer file straight out of Lightroom, and boom, all her photos are there.
That's, nowadays musically as well. You see it now.
Same thing.
It doesn't take months
Visual.
to do an album.
Yes.
Hell no.
And it
Nope.
takes
Why?
weeks.
Yes.
At most.
At most,
it takes
exactly.
weeks. Even if you did it in the middle of the night, a couple hours at a time, you can really start getting into stuff. But
Same thing, I'll do an album cover for an artist. I'll shoot it 3 o'clock this afternoon, 7 o'clock tonight. He'll have a front album cover, an inside cover, and a back cover done and sent
that's
to him.
important. But that's important now.
Yes,
It's like because we
express.
live in that in the instant moment.
Yes.
Right.
All of our lives now are so instant. Even when it's we talk about the cubby holes. Like I actually have a guy. It's funny because there's a lot of stuff I don't know, and I'm okay with that. But then the technology of it is I have a friend of mine who's in Connecticut who can dial in onto my laptop
Yeah.
and literally engineer the session in real time in his underwear. You know,
And his
at
fuzzy
home.
slippers on.
You know,
Yep.
and he's controlling, you know, every bit of my, you know, my board.
Yeah.
While I'm doing, you know, playing. And then it's like, yeah, you just cut tracks, and it's like, okay, I've actually seen situations where it's like 2 days, which I've done stuff, you know, literally start, finish, mix, master it out, go, bye. And you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
But because the technology does, not saying that I'm good at it, please. I'm good enough to get by, get a check. but
But to
That's
get
good
a
enough.
check,
You gotta do
have
something.
To,
That's
you
good
gotta
enough.
do something to get the check,
right,
baby.
right,
That's,
you know.
let's be
But,
clear
you know,
here on that.
but even with that, as a, you know, in our journey, like meeting Lisa back then, it's at a point where you start meeting other people, and it's like I was like, you know what, with the company, let me do a production company. So basically, I can do a whole lot of things and just put it under one umbrella.
Exactly.
Because I can't always play and be on stage. I'm not that player.
No.
You know, and you know, I'm good at what I do, but you know, I'm no Christian McBride where it's like, you know, first call no matter what. His name walks in and sorry, dude, you gotta go. You know,
He's got an acoustic.
you know,
Really
you
gotta
gotta
go.
go. You really gotta go.
Right.
You know, but with that being said, it's like there's a market for everything.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
You know, and when people start to understand that more, instead of, you know, I need to chase this to be here, you know, it's like, you know what, if you get this market here, that will raise you to here. So you have to learn how to do that. So with the Cubbyhole, I delved in a time where I wasn't playing and just taught myself. You know, I had some friends, you know, who help invest in, you know, even give my first studio speakers. You know, I bought Logic, but I couldn't afford speakers, and I was like, you know, and I was just using my laptop at the time, and I was like, oh man, here's some M studio speakers for you.
Just don't leave that laptop anywhere. Make
Right.
sure that laptop goes wherever
And
Alex or I are going.
And that's how it worked. You know? But it's like learning that process. And
It's
it
your
becomes-
workstation,
yeah.
literally.
You know, so like, you know, meeting you guys, or like it's like meeting Lisa, it's like you start getting to that thing, and I start learning more. And now I set it up to be like, you know what, you come here. You know,
Yes.
I'm not going to, I don't need to go into the city now. I don't need to go over here now. I can do this
Hell
here.
no.
You know, or if I'm in, you know, I have some clients in Europe, you know, who cut tracks with, you know, it's so much easier. You know, and also having a family is kind of like, my son, I can spend time at home.
Right.
You know, I don't need to be you know, I've done the 9 to 5, but then it's like you got to stop, ask somebody, is it okay if I do
leave.
this? I need to leave because of this, blah, blah, blah. Literally, if something happens, they just come downstairs. You know, what are you doing? What's wrong? What's
Dad's
wrong, buddy?
here.
Daddy, so
Yeah.
what's going on?
Right.
You know, unless I'm on the road. You know, it's a weird thing. I just bought my son a phone for his birthday.
Finally bought him a
Oh.
phone.
So now it's
How old
my
is your son?
10. He just
10.
turned 10.
Okay.
But it's like,
Nice.
but now
And
the
talk
fact that
about
I'm traveling a
musical.
lot.
A musical family. His son picked up every instrument.
It's like, well, that's another part. Yeah, because my son is at a point. It's like everyone's like, "Oh, you get your son." It's like, no, I'm not pushing him into it. But it's like
He just does
can
it on
come
his
down to the
own.
studio,
You see what your dad is doing.
At
You're
any time.
He does.
interested.
and you know,
It's
I
scary.
call his uncles, you know, which are again, these are friends that are just like you got legends. You know,
Yeah,
you
like
know,
Yeah.
Vernon and Reed.
like Vernon's
come
come
on,
by,
baby.
Vernon came by.
Vernon's come by, or Will Calhoun has come by. you
Wow,
know.
what a drummer.
You know, or
Yeah.
Right.
I was rehearsing with Corey
drummer.
Glover
Sure.
for his solo project, and he's
Yeah.
coming down. So everybody got to stop. My son's here. What you need, buddy?
Exactly.
You know, and he's like, he wants to play. And I was like, you can't play right now because we can play in a minute. But pick up his own instrument. He has his stuff,
And he does.
and he'll play. You
And
know,
he does.
with, you know, now he's learning cello, which is
There you go, Dad.
I'm excited about that. Trust me, he's on
yeah.
the cello thing. So it's like the path has started. You know.
Yeah, nice. So what's some of the notable projects that's come out of the cubby hole?
Right now, yeah, I'm working with 24/7 Spies. That they're in pre-production for their tour. Right
One of the
now,
most legendary bands
it's like
ever,
one of
run
the
by
most
Jimmy Hazel,
another underrated band, you know, in the metal rock scene.
without a doubt.
Jane's Addiction opened up for them
Right.
at one point. You know, every new metal artist, like I would say, you
Have to show props.
you got to show props to Spies,
to
these
okay.
guys, you know, and it's a part of black rock. You know, for me growing up, it's like seeing someone playing rock that looked like me. was a whole different element.
Let's get into that. Being into the black rock scene, when did that open up for you? Was that in Kentucky?
Well, I was into rock because it was like Southern rock. You kind
in the South, of course.
Yeah, the South. You was kind of,
Skinner.
Exactly. Leonard Skinner. But I grew up. It was two extremes. Outside of church or whatever, church was one thing. That was just music in general. But it became, you had the Black Channel, R&B, soul, and then you had rock.
The rock channel.
Which was Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, and all these things. And growing up with this, school is predominantly white in general.
Yes.
So it's a lot of rock stuff. I've seen, Yes in concert. I've seen Van Halen in concert. All these things in the 80s. And at a point where it was like pivotal, and it was kind of like, I was one of the few, if any, all black people, kids in the crowd.
Yeah. In Kentucky, on top of that. It's just like,
I got
middle of white America.
It's a white America. It's a middle of white America with no disrespect. But it was also, I have family like, well, you listen to that rock music, that white stuff. And what got me was I was a fan of Kiss. Gene Simmons. Let's just be
of all people.
Right, bass player.
Right, bass player, and it was just something different. I was just Hotter Than Hell was the album. That's my first. But my dad was like, "You like that, makeup and everything, rock." He's like, "Here," and he put a Funkadelic record in my hand.
Parliament. George Clinton, who Alex and I
was
both
7
worked
years
with.
old.
Legend.
And he was like, because he was, again, the segregation of stuff was still, there. But it was at a point of, you really like this? Let's go to this concert. And it was like Parliament Funkadelic.
And he can still put it out. In fact, a couple of years ago when we were at, was it Afropunk we were at?
I don't know.
And George came and...
Oh, yeah, that's, it was just a moment.
It was a moment.
You got to meet him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've met him and stuff, but it was just at a point there was an anniversary. It was like I could spend with my father to tell my father. It was like the Mothership Connection tour. 1970 something, and then it was like the anniversary
with the big ship.
Big ship.
They went bankrupt.
Right.
Yes, they did.
But it was one of the best freaking shows.
But it was the best show ever.
Right.
It's legendary.
So that was my introduction to funk, and at a point of what rock was. It was like rock was not what they media put as white rock, Southern rock in general, all these things, whatever. Because then it became understanding Funkadelic was like, no, that's rock. It is like rock. And
You're not kidding.
With spies in general, one of the things is that rock don't roll without soul.
That's right.
So true.
And people don't realize.
And it's like, even back, Little Richard and all these, it's like rock don't roll without soul. And it's like even, Elvis Presley, as they say, that he took a big bite out of R&B. The voicings and everything else. In fact, tell people, go online and look there's a video of the guy who wrote those songs who sounds just like Elvis. And I was like, the problem is, for most people, he's black.
Goes the same thing for most soul bands. You take a look at Hall & Oates.
Well, Hall & Oates,
they took most of their stuff from Smokey Robinson.
So I grew up like Black Sabbath.
Yeah,
it's a blues band.
That's a blues band, clear as
and
day, and they
you,
say
Ozzy
the same
Osbourne,
thing.
Like, I was into
AC/DC.
Ozzy. I was into Ozzy Osbourne. It was like, that whole scene growing up as well, and no one understood. I was like, dude, this is blues. And then when they tell you we're a blues cover band that decided to, to get into this, like, that's just it. Living Colour released their last record, and it was just basically a blues record. And so then it's like you mix that with R&B, rock. It's the same. It's just
three-chord blues, rock and roll.
The voltages on certain guitars are just cranked up a little more.
Yeah.
But then it's like, seeing Eddie Hazel playing guitar with Funkadelic, and it's kind of like, or realizing Jimi Hendrix and his history.
Oh yeah, he played with everybody before he did his
own thing.
But growing up in that, then it's like, you become. There's two different angles of like there's music, and then it's like, wow, you can sit in the middle with this. And growing up where I grew up, and then coming here to be able to work with those same artists that I had posters on my wall.
Same thing for me. David Cassidy. I had his poster above my bed for 20 years, and then I end up becoming his photographer, including his final performance before he died. And interview.
Let's get into a little bit of that too.
Glen Campbell's final performance, Carnegie Hall, put me in the Hall of Fame, and also I was in his autobiography. I was asked by James Keach, the producer of the movie, not only for the photo to use in the movie, but also me filmed live. And in fact, Aalics worked his final benefit before he passed at the cutting room, and we silent auctioned off my photo for an ungodly amount of money for the Alzheimer's Saving Neurons Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation. And I brought in with me the Sugar Hill Gang, Living Color, Corey Glover, Ivan Neville, and all of these big names that were all black rock musicians that I worked for. And they all came together as a family. And it went over and made a lot of money. Fantastic. And, I was blessed that when Glenn needed the help, not only could I help him by covering his final performance at Carnegie Hall that night, but also afterwards helping his charity out. And with the help of Aalics and our friends and the groups that we work with, we're able to pull together such a big, in New York City, benefit like that. $2,000 a head a seat, and upper echelon people, and we pulled it off in one night at the cutting room.
Documentary, and you were in the documentary
as well.
Yes, I was.
I'll Be Me, and it won a Grammy for the song, and then I Won't Miss You, and then the movie won an Academy Award, and and shortly after, sadly, we lost Glenn, who is not replaceable in the country world.
No.
Definitely not. And I know Aalics really had a fondness for that kind of country also.
Yeah,
real country.
Come on. You're from Kentucky. You got to.
Right.
I'm from South Carolina. I still have.
I mean, it's just that.
Yeah.
Country today is nothing like it.
It was around all the time. So you could, I have a different. I hear some people, I can't listen to country. It's the one genre. It's like, no. If you hear the stories and the insanely tight playing by these bands.
I always tell people, if you ever want to know how to play music, hang out with country players.
Oh my God,
Roy
it's
Clark.
So
there was nothing with strings that man couldn't play.
I can't stand this. I was like, you know what? With what little they have, they will play circles around you all day.
That is correct.
And not think twice and go home and fix beans for dinner.
Exactly.
That's right.
Because it's the reality of it. And it's like, I have some friends because I build pedal boards and stuff too.
Right.
And they're
custom built
like,
pedal boards.
They're like, what's this sound for this and blah, blah. It's like, dude, you know what? Check out the worship bands and check out the country bands.
The worship band,
And it's like
true.
It's true. It's a whole other market of artists and sounds that are happening and things that are going on that it's not an everyday thing. But like with the Campbell stuff and blah blah blah. It's like you're looking at. It's like how to say this level of artistry, but you got to build that and help them with that and playing around like I said, Funkadelic and all these things for me is like growing up, and it's like, and just build the foundation to where we are now. Yeah. Even though you don't think of it then. Lisa, as I remember when we first met, it was just really getting into the digital world of photography.
Yep.
And then it's like, then you have this with Campbell, and you have this with all, all these artists. And it's like, I'm talking to such and such. I'm talking to such and such. And I'm kind of like, really now? And you have issues. Well, guess what? We all have them. The hustle is real, but you know what? But it's like...
And he kept me grounded through everything. I mean, I didn't take coming up in the photography world in live performance really well. I had a hard time dealing with it, and I leaned on Aalics a lot. And one thing he always told me was be real and keep reinventing yourself. Because the industry keeps reinventing itself.
I mean, for you nobody else is even doing the technology that you're doing. If that's not reinventing, that's just creating the whole thing. It's
nobody does the mobile app
which
like
is
I
funny
do.
as well, because she used to talk about she's not creative. And I'm like, everyone is
Right, I
creative.
said I'm not an artist.
It's like when you wake up in the morning, you're creative because you got to figure out a way to go shit, shower, and shave.
Yeah.
Right.
And get to where you got to be at a certain time. That's creative. You may not be doing this, but it's like when I start seeing her work,
That's
and
creative.
you're just kind of like, yo, for real? And it's like,
One of my favorite pictures ever you did with
Jose?
Yeah, Jose
Feliciano. That was an amazing night. And, I had both of you there.
Just what you're saying with the technology is just the crispness, how you do your Lightroom.
but
My
there's
edit.
no light.
Yeah, but
The
your
stage.
edit,
Yeah, there is no.
Yeah, there is
My-
no light, but the edit that you do was just so like striking, and it's like one of my, well, even other people liked it. It's one of my most liked
Right.
photos
Right.
ever.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, it's those. Okay, it was Jose Feliciano, but you see a lot of people with
Right.
artists. You're like, but that was just striking.
The textures and feelings
Yes.
of
Presentation.
The presentation. That's creativity.
I make the most of what I have, and one of the things behind it that people don't realize is overprocessing, and that's something I'll never do. My photo straight out of the camera, my raw, actually, if it takes me more than 15 seconds to edit a photo, move on to the next. So my raw, what comes out of my camera, is pretty much almost the same. It's 90% of what you see
And you
when I
mostly
edit.
do low light.
Yeah,
That's
Very,
all
very
your stuff
low.
Is super low
that's
light.
crazy. And it's
I'm endorsed by
moving.
Nikon,
Nikon.
okay? And
So what do you use? What do you use? Tell us.
Shout
a
out to
Nikon
Nikon.
DF,
Yes.
which is their, I guess, the sensor itself is the same as all other full-frame cameras, but it has the largest pixels out of any camera, not the highest amount, the largest pixels. If you visualize a bubble, has the biggest bubbles on the sensor, which lets in the most light, so I can hit very high ISOs to work in very, very dark places and still have a clean, crisp, detailed image.
Yeah. And we see it.
Yeah, you see it, right? You see it.
I mean,
Nikon lenses too. Right?
Yeah. it's-
Straight Nikon lenses. I don't own anything except for 5 Nikon bodies and a ton of Nikon lenses, and I only use one program, and that's Lightroom, which is not Photoshop, because I shoot reportage. What you see is exactly what Lisa is seeing in front of me.
But it's almost like, in a weird sense, and excuse me for interrupting you on this,
Sure.
it's almost like an enhanced photo.
Yeah.
If you ever look at her photos, and it's really not
It's
that
not.
enhanced.
Yeah.
It's just
But it
really,
feels
it's
so
like there's so much.
like-
Because again, when I what I do is like, so you say if you don't feel it, don't play it.
Yeah.
But it's like the emotion and the feeling of what her photos are. It's like there's depth.
Yeah. Exactly.
Definitely.
You know.
Definitely.
I gave Alex a photo once, and I don't remember, was it Robert Plant that I gave you a photo
Yes.
of that's hanging downstairs?
Yes.
And when I brought it into the cubby hole, I walked in with it, and he started touching it like to grab Robert Plant's hand. And he said,
Because
how
it
did
just
you
felt like it was a 3D
get it
where it's like you can
3D?
touch it.
And then Neville, his partner, came in, and he started touching the photo, doing the same thing. And what's wrong with you guys? And it was just very funny.
I can't wait to see that picture because I mean, just what I see on social media is like, whoa.
The room.
So I can only imagine in a properly set,
Yeah,
like,
it's
whoa.
Because like when you walk into the cubby hole, it's really sitting there and it's behind a few little things and it's kind of weird because you look at it, you don't really notice it, but you almost want to just be like, what is that in between some other things? It's a great photo.
Thanks. And yeah, like I said, Alex has a bunch of stuff hanging in his house that's mine. And, I guess the greatest honor is when you have one of your clients, like Lauryn, had come to Alex and said to Alex, would Lisa get mad if we use one of her photos for the press laminates?
Yeah, I'm just
For-
like mad.
I said, mad? I said, I work for you.
Yeah.
So Alex was like, no, you can
Oh,
use
yeah,
one
yeah.
of them. So her press passes
So
for
that
us.
press pass, and then that also led you to Alicia Keys, right?
Yes.
I heard that story.
I met Alicia Keys in the artist building. I was working for David Byrne, and Alex has a connection to the building also.
The in-laws live.
His in-laws live there too. And one day I go downstairs, okay, to meet David Byrne, and we had to wait to get into the studio. And I heard a woman on a piano. I'm going, who's that? And David's like banging on the door. And he's like, are you done yet? Are you done yet? The door opens and out walks Alicia Keys. And I was like, oh, hi, here's my business card. And David's like, I highly recommend her. And then Kaisa comes downstairs. Alex knows Kaisa also. Came down, who's working with David Byrne when I was on David Byrne St. Vincent. And she came downstairs and she said to Alicia, oh, this is a really good friend of mine. I'm working with her now. And then next thing you know, I'm doing work with Alicia. And
didn't she see that laminate, though, too?
Yes, she knew right away. She said to me, didn't you do Lauryn Hill's laminate? I said, yeah, that was me. And she started laughing. You know, it's just kind of a big circle.
Exactly.
And it's a tight community, wouldn't you say, Alex, that we're a small group?
Small in the sense of we just know, like we know each other. Like at a point, yeah, it is small. Let's start there.
Yeah,
because it's not.
It's
you know,
a small
not
family.
And it take not too many people can last in New York for too long anyway. So if you can stay and make it happen and do things here, then you're gonna get in the club. Because you end up mixing everywhere. Even as an engineer, it's like you go through the Village joint, you go through all the Brooklyn venues, and you mix every band in the world. Yeah. If you're an audio engineer in New York City.
And you should know, Phila, because I worked with you for a long time, and I've seen you do everything from classical to cabaret to hard rock to death metal.
But that there,
and I love it all.
Is that foundation I spoke earlier?
Exactly.
You know, you're building onto that, and it's like where you settle for a while into the scene, like so you're engineering and you doing this, or now I'm stage production more than actually playing because again we have to hustle.
Right. It's a daily hustle every day.
New York City.
And it's New York City. So one job is not enough.
Oh, no.
Never.
Two jobs ain't enough.
We could have 4 or 5 projects, Alex and I, at one time going.
You're still not making enough.
Nope.
But some people see like the social media aspect of it. Of this past month and a half, I've been St. Lucia, St. Thomas, and Costa Rica. And that's great, blah blah.
And before that, you were in Africa,
and you're traveling so much, But it's like they see oh wow, this is so beautiful, blah blah. It's like travel,
get stuck 3 days in a snowstorm in South Carolina.
And like I had an instance where it was about traveling and this whole band music stuff. I was teching for Doug. We're doing Living Color. No, sorry, not Living Color. We're doing Lauryn Hill.
Lauryn Hill.
In California, flying back red eye to do Eric Gales and Doug at BB King's.
At BB King's.
The next day, and losing a pedal board to get it back in time, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, these are just 2 different gigs already.
Or loading 1,000 pounds of gear from Living Color
in a truck.
In a truck.
And then you're like, these things people don't see these things. But again, it's like,
Or the 2 of us leaving a venue with 1,000 pounds of gear, going back to one studio, unloading, loading up, and going to another act with another 1,000 pounds of gear that Alex packed up into my truck. Yes,
and you're really at the
and then heading to the next gig.
So that's me and
within 24 hours,
5 years,
and 2 in the morning at times.
Exactly, sleeping
right.
in the car
and that's not
6
2 a.m.
and load in 7 the next morning. And Alex is
it's like it'll take too long to get home. I'm just gonna sleep. in my car.
We're gonna be here,
and
we just go.
But I love it.
Exactly.
So do I.
But it's like as I said, foundation before. It's like building, and you get these experiences, to what's next.
And it's not the glamour and what people think. You eat in a lot of gas stations, he'll tell you.
And if you look at your Facebook thing, you're a big Sheets fan.
I mean, you live on the road.
You're living on the road,
and you gotta think of health. You gotta think of your health. You gotta think of your mental health.
And physical health.
What are you putting in your body?
Exactly.
Right. Again, Alex is a true hero to me. I mean, Alex, when I started with you, you were diabetic, and We were at a gig one night, and Alex got sick.
I was like, yo, I'm not
And
doing well.
he turned around and he said to me, I don't feel so good. And he started going down.
Ooh.
And I always carry a ton of Coca-Cola with me, so he got that shoved in. And I realized Alex never ate that day.
Yeah, that was a crazy day.
Okay? Even though they served food and we had catering, Alex was so busy because somebody got there late and had a sound check 2 hours late.
Let me say this. Yeah, my job, I just thought about it now. We're talking about production stuff. I'm Captain Save-A-Ho.
I'm glad you said it.
That is
and we've been calling him that for a long
in the
time.
industry. And what
Captain
I do.
Save-A-Ho.
Captain Save-A-Ho.
And
that's why they listen, because you the captain, baby.
When our like,
when it can't be fixed,
text to the stars in a certain way. Like I'm more personal. It's because it's like there's a lot of text. Trust me, there's a lot of text and great production people, but that's what they do.
And Fela saw it happen with Screaming Headless Torsos at the Iridium when
right.
that blew up that night. A monitor blew up. Alex is with me. Alex is in a suit. A Hugo Boss suit, I think it was.
I just
and the monitor blew up in the ceiling and needed to be changed. And
something happened. I just know that I was.
And I turned around and I said, we have Alex Bronson in the house. Next thing I know, I see Alex takes off the suit jacket and he's climbing in the ceiling. I think you were at front of house that night.
I just remember something happened, and it was like, because again,
Captain Save-A-Ho.
You're listening more, it's like, and in this industry, it's like pimps and hoes. Like the industry is just, the pimps are the main industry of record labels and everything else, and the hoes are the artists.
Yeah, take the stroll.
So I'm
Yep.
captain. So I'm captain. It's like, I gotta go save these hoes today.
Yeah,
and no disrespecting what I was saying it, but it's just really, it is really at a point. It's like it's joking because the guys in the industry, my son's uncles, we call them uncles. Who are the legends. It's like, that's Captain Save-A-Ho. And it's like because mostly when my phone rings, it's like if I walk on stage because my phone rings, something's wrong.
Something's wrong that can't be fixed by anyone else but Captain Save-A-Ho.
Like, all right, we need this done.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing for me was Bernie Worrell.
Right.
The Bernie Worrell benefit, right? It was the last show before he passed, where it was like a lot of artists were coming in. Rick Springfield, the whole nine, Living Color, known as
And Alex
Hendrix.
discovered that he was a shredding guitarist, Rick Springfield, and let me know the next morning he was blown away.
I went to the show, they need help. They just need some help. So I don't know what's going on. So I walk in to realize nobody knows what to do. And there's 25 different artists.
Yeah.
And you have all this gear that dropped off by SIR. And it's just dumped
in front of the stage.
In front of the stage.
I know that dump.
Shit in red boxes, SIR.
And then it's like, as you asked the production manager what's going on, he was like, I don't know.
They told me what gear to get,
and that was
it, baby. What do you want me to do? And that's what you get from a lot of production managers at venues, and they don't really want to take hold of what's going on. They're not sticking to the schedule, or nobody.
They don't have that. What needs to be done.
Exactly.
Well, Fela, I've seen you do things like adjust lights for me, climb ladders, move pianos.
Oh, yeah. Well, because I want it to be, it has to be a great show. So, I'm going to make it happen.
Me so I can make it happen also. Right. You and Dennis, more than once, I had to say, move the piano, turn the lights, open the barn doors, climb the ladder, and move it over so I can get what I need.
B3.
Exactly. So you come down to a truck dump, basically, in front of the stage.
In front of the stage.
That's it.
They drop that off at 10 a.m. and left.
Right, and that's it. And then it's like, I still don't know who's performing.
Nope.
When,
what? Nope.
Right. So it's like, it's like putting that puzzle together, and it's like, that's that challenge
the
for me.
Day of. People, you have to realize, when this stuff happens with the day of and the names that he named, and nothing was ready.
Right, and you don't.
And that's in New York City. I've seen that in my 11 years. I've been here a minute now. So you see it all the time. Just halfway done stuff sometimes,
but then that puts into place, if you can make it here,
anywhere
you can make it anywhere.
You can make it anywhere, and especially in this industry, it's one thing if you're Wall Street and you're playing that game, but
right.
This is with a bunch
this
of
game.
This game is a bunch of egos.
Yes,
ego is everything in this industry, and we see them all
so at a
day
point,
long.
I have to be at a point I give no fucks who you are.
and I don't either.
I gotta make you sound good,
And I have to make you look good.
So all your attitude
And on time.
and on time.
Yeah.
So all your attitude and everything does not help me one bit.
Nor
So-
does it nor does it bother me. And it used to. And Aalics will tell you, I used to
Yeah,
get really upset.
You
and
can't take it personally.
Yeah,
can't.
you
You
can't
can't.
Aalics said to me, "This is business as usual." And now, when I have an artist and they have an ego or they're nasty, I smile and just, you want the best picture? It's coming out of me. Just sit there, shut up, and smile.
So you do what you.
That's it.
and
Do
I'll
what you
me.
do. I do what I do. Carry on. And
I've had an artist complain, like, so, because a lot of times people see me and they're like, you're not really doing anything, and I'm like, you don't understand what
he
I
has
do.
no idea.
But it's like, I don't really understand what you're doing. It's like, well, when I don't do it, you'll know. And
You'll
literally-
see it, you'll hear it.
You'll hear it. And I literally had to show them what I was talking about, because it's like, you don't see, and it's like something happened. I'm like, there you go. Now you got problems with this. Well, if you listen to me, we wouldn't have this problem, because these are the things that I check off before you walk through this door.
And I've seen artists stop performing and standing there on the stage and the whole band stops playing and you hear, "Aalics, I need help. Aalics, I need help." And next thing I know not to pull that shutter again, because here comes Aalics up on the stage to
that
Captain
cowboy hat
Save-A-Ho.
is coming.
Captain Save-A-Ho's
Yeah,
up there again.
It's like that bouncing ball with the words that people are singing. A lot of times it's like, on the hat shows.
That's
And
the
it's
shit.
like, all
That's
see is
what
the
you
hat
see.
bouncing
You see
across
I'm
the
Aalics'
sure
stage.
hat
it's
bouncing
all
around the
black on it.
stage.
It's
and
a
it
hat.
has a brown,
That's it.
it's a brown leather cowboy hat walking,
Yeah, it is.
jumping across the stage. With all that we do, it's like there's the creative flow, the hustle, the stress, the New York vibe. And again, if you could do it here, then it's kind of like
You can do it anywhere.
you can do it anywhere, and
Really, you can.
and
It's so
and,
true.
and it's a beautiful thing, but it's also it's a responsibility.
A big responsibility. You only
You
get
go-
one
you go,
shot at a
go
live
overseas. Go
performance.
somewhere international. You say
Sure.
you're out of New York and you do this, and it's like everyone's looking at you at a different level now.
Of course, because once you
You know.
say you're from New York, or they know we're from New York or whatever, they just kind of look at you like, the big city? And it's like, yeah. And then they move a lot quicker.
It's a different movement. It's a different movement, different thought process. And
Absolutely.
I really dig it.
Yeah, I love it.
but-
It is a respected town everywhere too. It's like, 10 years,
Respected, feared, and everything
Yes,
else.
and
Yes,
feared.
feared.
The media, because
Feared.
I tell people I wake up every day still fear. I'm still, if I don't have that fear of New York waking up, it's like I got to do something here in New York.
Uncomfortable, right?
Right. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm never 100% comfortable.
This is the most uncomfortable city. That's what it is.
And for me, it's the opposite, because after 55 years, I've never lived
Anywhere,
really
yeah.
anywhere else. I was born and raised here. So for me, it's just normal every
Normal.
day.
And that's it, and I
yeah.
coming from Kentucky to live here is a culture shock by itself.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the
Right.
speed of things, and then I moved to San Diego, for example, and I was like, I'm dying here.
And hold on, you went to San Diego first?
From New York.
Oh, well, see, I went to Miami first there for 4 years and then came here.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, wow. Even though it was kind of like a warm New York, because it's all ex-New Yorkers.
Right,
moved
right.
Right,
down.
move down there,
Like,
retire,
Like, what's
Right.
going on?
transplants.
A bunch of transplants down to South Florida. But I wonder sometimes if I could have went straight here. Like I took a few years before I came here and
You know
started to
what?
go at the tech stuff. But now I'm like, I should have probably even went quicker than what I did.
Well, you know what? Maybe. Well, your experience maybe, because at a point when your universe is not going to put in play what you can't handle.
Exactly.
Right.
The universe is true.
And you got to trust that.
Exactly.
I believe that, but it's like that thing, like you're saying, you're from the South.
Yeah.
There's that. You could imagine coming straight to New York from there.
For South,
No.
for South Carolina. That was
No.
Yeah, so that's why I kind of call South Florida was like my BA. And then the
Right.
masters.
Right.
Well, see,
The
My
masters
came
came
was when
I moved to
here.
New York sight unseen
Yeah, you
Wow.
from Kentucky. I had a $75 in a U-Haul truck
did. Yep,
and moved here.
Woo.
he did.
And that was almost 30-something years ago.
Wow.
It's late late 90s, something like that.
Oh my goodness, you were in the.
It was a
That was the
total
thick of
transition.
it.
It's a total transition
Well,
of what New York is.
It's funny because my parents met in the Bronx. My dad is from South Carolina. My mom is from West Virginia, and they met here.
Right.
Had my sister. My dad's car got stolen like 3 times. it was like the heroin epidemic in like the early 80s,
Right.
like late 70s. So he was just like, I'm done. I'm going back to the South, like in that mass migration
of movement,
of like a lot of black people going back to the South because they were just done with the North. So I was born in South Carolina, so I was aware. I had visited, and I was
Right,
like,
I never had that, so it was
interesting.
It was a huge culture shock for me.
wow.
You know,
Yeah,
it was
92.
huge.
That was
Like,
kind of the work. That was
the end
That
of
was
the
a dip.
horrifying parts of New York.
that was a dip in the early
yeah,
90s.
yes.
That was when I first came, like 91, when I was like 18
That
or
was a
something.
rough time,
Oh.
and me not knowing anything except what you see
Yeah.
on TV. But I went, FIT. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
You were in
yeah,
school, so
Yeah,
there was
you
some
went to
kind of
school.
structure.
Yeah, there was a structure of that. It's not just
Yeah.
walking in,
Okay.
I would have lost my mind.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like I moved here with no job, but I had the knowledge of mixing. I had worked at Arturo Sandoval's Jazz Club.
Okay.
So I knew I could mix, but it's New York. I wrap that cable. I
Right.
don't know who you are.
Right.
right.
Nor do you care.
It was like they
Nor
didn't
do
know.
you care.
I had mixed the jazz orchestra and all of this, and they were like, "Cool,
Wrap the
Well, you
cable.
did
wrap
work-
that cable, baby."
Right.
You did work and mix some of the greatest
And
artists
it's funny you say
ever.
that. Like, I'll use this,
Legends.
like, you don't know who you're working with, because when I did that Bernie tribute thing when he was this last show, and I remember working stage, and I put this, and I met, Daisha Sledge.
Oh yeah. We haven't worked together, but we
know
know
who's
where we are.
But
We're friends
I
online.
that was the first time I met her.
Nice.
Okay, and then Shamel Hughes, who is the engineer for her. He just won a Grammy. And it was just really interesting because it's like you don't know who you're working with, but everybody's again on this hustle.
Right.
And like he just did the track for her, and he has a Grammy for that. And it's like, dude, I never knew you were in. You're this wizard in doing this. And while Daisha is doing monitoring for everybody and their grandmama. And,
Yeah.
and the scene, it's like you're running across so many people, but everyone has their story and has their growth.
And it's
in what this
amazing.
is.
Sometimes I'll call Aalics or Aalics will call me, and I'll say I was on a gig yesterday, and X, Y, or Z from a prior tour of ours, either an artist or a technician. I was out in Long Island a couple of months ago working for Godfrey Townsend from Alan Parsons Project, and he was doing a birthday party for Eric Clapton that I had to cover. And he was a good-looking bass player, and came over. He leaned over to me. He goes, "Is your name Lisa?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Did you work with Living Colour?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You know Doug Wimbish?" I said, "Of course." And then he goes to me, "Aalics Bronson."
He's always that.
I went,
Had to
"Uh-oh."
go down.
And this is 3 hours out in Long Island. I call Aalics, and I say, "Do you know John Montagna?"
Yeah.
And Spectre guy. And he said, "Yeah, of course." So John and I took a selfie, and we texted it to Aalics, who was at home, and
it's like, but the name's like Alan Parsons Project. And it's kind
So
of like,
he knew.
but and how you meet people.
tell
So
him how you met him.
I met him at an airport doing a whole nother gig a year or so
In
before,
Germany.
In Germany.
Yes.
In an airport.
Right, in an airport. And it's kind of like, just met this random, it was like,
He had a bass on his
Had a
back.
Spectre bass on his back, and we're both Spectre artists. And it was just, I was endorsing it. It was like, just saw someone in the airport, and it was like, we became friends. Like, oh yeah, I live in Brooklyn, and blah, blah, blah. This and
Well,
that.
this guy is crazy over Aalics, and he's up there playing bass with Godfrey Townsend at Eric Clapton's 75th birthday tribute. And all of a sudden, the bassist comes up to me and asks me about Doug, and then he just looks over. He goes, "I know you, Aalics Bronson." And I just started laughing. I said, "How well do you know him?" He goes, "Let's take a selfie and send it to him." And I did, and Aalics called me up.
I was like,
That's my
great.
brother up there. You be
That's
good
great.
to him. So I took care of him. Great
That's
guy
good.
and amazing player. And I've also had the honor of working for Aalics. In fact, I put him on the cover of Spectre's catalog once, didn't I?
Wow. Fantastic.
I think I was shooting him for his upcoming album.
Some stuff from the album, and then
And one of the photos, I guess Stuart saw and went
they were like,
crazy,
they
and they were
grabbed
like, "Can we have that for the cover of Spectre magazine?" And we said, "Sure."
Let's get techie with you guys. What gear do you guys endorse? What do you use?
Well, I'm endorsed by Nikon, so everything I use is Nikon.
Yep.
I also work for Fuchs Audio Technology, which is probably the finest hand-built amps in the
Guitar
world,
amps
made in
right
the
here in
USA
Clifton.
for guitars.
If you ever-
I know.
You can check them out. They're in Clifton, New Jersey.
El Dimiola.
Right, Al Demiola, one of my
Demiola,
clients, is
exactly.
Fuchs amplifiers, and he
the
endorses
photos are
them
hers. All those
also.
photos with Fuchs
And
are
I
hers.
do most of the Fuchs work.
Yeah.
Also, FU tone blocks for guitarists, probably the finest in the world, Adam Reaver, and I do a lot of work for him whenever I can. Nuno Betancourt, Phil Collin from Def Leppard, Vernon Reed, of course, is FU tone, only FU tone blocks, and I do a lot of commercial work. I do drums, and probably one of the most famous things you guys know is those are acrylic drums that Chad Smith and Lou Calderola and those guys play. I'm the photographer always laying on her back or on the lap of the drum player shooting through the bottom of the clear drum head and out the top. I guess I'm small and thin enough that I can get there and get her
Those
done.
odd shots.
So,
Those
yeah,
odd
I do precision drums, RCI, Starlight, all the acrylic drums, which is some of the neatest stuff. Hardest stuff to do is to get somebody in focus when he's moving at 113 miles an hour.
I mean, when
And
they're
I'm
doing
laying
it's a
on
blur
his
when they're
lap.
Right.
Right, I'm underneath him on my back on his lap, and he's sweating to death, and he's got to support me on his lap or me on the floor. and
Oh, wow.
Up on a stage trying not to be seen.
Exactly.
And it's
Yeah.
pretty rough. All my gear is Nikon, and I'm a member of Nikon Professional Services.
And you use Lightroom. You should
And
endorse
Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom,
Yes,
and
Adobe
that
Lightroom.
is it. I mean,
it, okay.
sometimes less is more, and I find
Exactly.
if you take a perfect photo, then there should be little, very, very little editing. And 15 seconds, if I have to waste more than that, because I have to upload to a press wire, on a lot of my work. And if I have an 11:45 deadline, I finish a show at 11:30. That gives me 15 or 20 minutes to upload to get it across the wire to hit a publication the next morning.
Do you have to hotspot that, or is it you just have to haul ass home, or how do you?
Depends. Sometimes if I'm shooting the first 3, I can haul butt home. Depending on where I am. If I'm on the road, I can't. But if I'm a New York, New Jersey venue, Pennsylvania venue, I can haul butt home and get it out and upload by 11:45.
Yeah.
If not, then I just bring the laptop with me. I have Lightroom loaded on the laptop. I edit then and there. Same thing on the tour bus. You can ask Alex.
You'll just use
Right
the
then and
Wi-Fi,
there.
or
I
you'll use your own hotspot.
I have both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have both because
Nice.
not everywhere that Alex and I travel
That's
is
what I was about to
known
say.
to be. You're lucky we have electricity or hot water, and sometimes we don't.
Right.
So it's on the fly.
Yeah.
So sometimes
hotspotting.
hotspotting.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you use for hotspots?
I have through AT&T.
AT&T, oh.
Yeah, a hotspot, mobile hotspot,
Nice.
and that hooks up. And I've never not been able to connect.
Oh.
Luckily, I've never missed a show where I
Knock on
couldn't.
wood.
Yeah, no, right?
No, luckily I haven't gotten stuck, even in some of the worst places I was for Wi-Fi.
Well, hey.
Sometimes you're in the middle of nowhere,
That's the biggest endorsement you could ever give for them. I mean, that's a because that's
and I think Alex uses AT&T also.
Yes.
Yes, he does also, and
that's
I've had
engineering.
nothing but good things to say about them.
Yeah, but yeah. I think
And how about you? What's your endorsements? And you do custom
pedal
pedal
boards.
boards,
I built,
and
I built,
how would somebody be able to get that from you? Too?
You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Alex Bronson, easy. But yeah, I'm endorsed with Spectre bases. I've been using them for 15 plus years.
Yeah.
Endorsed with them. Eventide pedals effects is I work with them in helping Vernon Reed and everybody like that.
Right.
It's digital effect pedals.
Yeah,
I do.
yeah. They're nice.
30 miles
Those-
of pedal board for Doug, and that
I work.
you name it. 30 miles of pedal board between Vernon
Yeah.
and Doug. Loaded in my truck before.
You have to see sound at that point.
Oh, yeah, no, right?
There's no,
Oh, yeah.
I've kind of
There are pictures on Facebook of the back of my truck with it.
Vernon has come to the Iridium, so I mixed him a few times. And
I mixed him and Will Calhoun.
Yeah.
I forgot
you
the
did
bass
Calhoun,
player.
that's right.
The bass
Yeah.
player. I forgot the bass
I know Melvin Gibbs.
Melvin Gibbs.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mixed
You
them.
mixed them.
Yeah. And I think we also mixed. We're gonna bring up a good friend of you guys that passed away recently. Ronnie Drayton. We mixed him as well with Burnt Sugar through Iridium and
And BB King's, I think. Didn't you do BB
No, I
King's
didn't
with
do
me?
I didn't do BB King's, but funny enough, I've done some Hampton's weddings with him.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I've seen him in so many that also shows the versatility of the type of guitars he was.
He was a legend.
He was a legend at that.
In the Hamptons.
Doing a wedding gig and
To
then
the Iridium.
and then
Iridium at night.
or doing a Nona Hendrix show.
Yes.
Within the time period of stuff. And
Just-
He was a hero.
Yeah.
And he was a good, decent man. He was always decent to me. I know he was decent to Aalics.
Yeah, he was like we call him like he was one of the elders.
Yeah.
Right.
In this industry, there's a lot of people, they see on TV what MTV has helped, but then there's people behind that you don't see.
That you don't see.
That you don't know about. You don't know their names.
New York City legend.
Right.
That's
right.
correct.
Of just holding down
and-
that foundation
Yes,
of what
he
we've
was.
all
Pioneer.
I don't feel like you were an engineer unless you had mixed them like
Right.
he
You,
was-
you have to know. You have to
Like-
know. The Family Stand. The band Family Stand and all
Yes.
this. And like Ronnie has played on all these records that people take
his
for
catalog's
granted.
huge.
His catalog is huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to have him in my life,
Yeah.
I call
Or
him
in mine.
like it's Uncle Ronnie to me.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
He'd come by the house or whatever. It's like, and I would have to, again, coming from Kentucky, excuse me, I have to pinch myself sometimes of people who have walked through the cubbyhole in a sense of what I've created, and what we do.
What we both do.
To this is an everyday, that's, to my son, it's like, that's Uncle Ronnie or that's Uncle Jimmy or this, hey, Will, it's kind of like,
Right.
you're like, really? It's like, this is the life you live. Like, even, have family who Lonnie Liston Smith and the Cosmic Echoes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like my father-in-law was part of that.
Yeah.
He was part of discovering George Benson.
Yes, he was.
Oh,
All these things, and it's kind of like, really, So like, and it's funny because like you go to NAMM, and you see, if you see George Benson around, he never takes photos. He will not take a photo. Like he'll hang out, but he won't take a photo. It's just how he is. One of those things that I've noticed. But then it's like one day, like he didn't know me from anything. But when I mentioned my father-in-law on the point, it was like everything stops. Because that whole Cosmic Echoes, Lonnie Liston Smith, and Dr. Lonnie Smith.
Dr. Lonnie Smith.
Dr. Lonnie Smith is Uncle Lonnie and the
Right.
family. And it's kind of like, really? This is the shit that I grew up on.
What you grew up with.
And it's like, this is some dark, some heavy shit. But endorsements and stuff. But it's like I endorse my own self, but cubbyhole.
Exactly.
That's it.
That
Start
was
there.
me
I
too,
endorse-
too. And
That's
you
it.
create custom
I pedal boards and
pedal
swords
Pedal boards
and sounds.
are Aalics.
That's my thing.
I've
Sound is my
never
thing.
heard sound come out of pedal boards that
and-
Aalics
and
has done.
Just learning,
Unbelievable.
just learning in my thing. Learning when you're working with. I was used Doug Wimbish and Vernon Reed. Mm-hmm. There's a point of if you notice how much technology they use, you're just like you're surprised how they get
their
sound.
boards are huge.
Yes.
Oh, don't even go there.
Don't
And
even go
half
there.
the time, Alex says, less is more. And there's 6 pedals, and that's it. And Vernon's standing there saying, my whole garage is full.
Yeah.
And Alex
But
said,
it-
only 6 pedals is coming. I can give you what you need with those 6 pedals
But
with
it's
what I
like,
do.
there's literally huge boards, and people talk about it. It's a living color staple of sound.
Right.
Working with most of my endorsements, like I said, Spectre, Eventide, who else? Aguilar. Amps,
Right, amps.
Amps. Sorry, it's like,
And they made it to Europe, okay, for you.
huh?
And you
Oh, I've had moments, where
He's
your
had
endorsers.
moments where,
I did a dumbass
amps don't
move
make it in
in Europe. where
Germany.
I forgot to switch the power voltage over, and I
220.
plugged the amp in,
Right.
and it was in slow motion of watching this white mushroom cloud just poof.
Sure.
Like, and this is 2 days before the tour starts.
And then he needs another amp.
I need
And it's
another amp, and it was like,
I have
you
to
know,
drive 10 hours to go and get it.
So you're calling people, and it's like, and it's, these were endorsers. It's the best part about some endorsements. It's not about the free shit, because nothing's free ever.
Never.
Exactly.
You're
but
working for it.
I mean, we're giving content. We're doing all the stuff to make it happen.
You're paying for it
Exactly.
one way or another.
Exactly.
Nothing's ever
Time.
free. You're right. Time is that, and and it's a give and take. But it's like, for a company of that nature, really, there's a list of people. Christian used to be with Aguilar back in the day. But with that being said, they turn around and was like, I call here, they call Europe, and like, we got to send him another one. Get
And
him
then
another one.
you had to drive 10 hours or
I had to
9
go 10
hours
at
that
least,
day.
but it's like my side, because I needed it for the tour.
Yeah.
And it's like 2 days
So
before.
he gets in the van
So I'm
and driving
getting-
10
I have
hours,
to go 10
calling,
hours. Like,
going,
they
oh
go
my
get
God,
it.
I got to write.
Because if they
drive
shipped it,
10
it would have been,
hours.
I'm already on the road. And they can't.
It was like,
Europe is not like, you can just FedEx it, I want it here.
No.
There's a lot of paperwork.
And there's no Amazon delivery
Yeah.
same day there, so it's
no
not
Prime?
coming.
No,
No Prime,
there's
sorry.
There's
no
no
Prime.
Sorry,
Prime on that Aguilera, baby.
Our first world problems are not happening.
Absolutely not.
Exactly. When you tour, you're like, oh, I am first world. Hold
That's
on.
right.
Like, it
That's
immediately
right.
hits
Right.
you.
It
You're
hits
not
you-
in
it
New
hits
York
you
anymore,
hard,
Toto.
I mean, even in bigger cities in Europe, be like, oh,
No, it's not like here.
And
this is really an anomaly to
Yes.
be able to get your hands on so
Some-
much
yes.
stuff.
Yes.
just like that.
Boom,
quickly.
like
But that's
anywhere
unless-
in New York in 20 minutes, in like at least an hour, somebody can get you that
Oh.
other amp.
And we've had that happen when I was on tour with Eric Gales. Eric Gales had a Fuchs
Yeah,
amp,
amps.
and it was not the fault of Fuchs when they built the amp, but the whole box of tubes that Andy had gotten were bad. So they had to pull back all those amps.
So when you used it on a gig and it blew out.
And he used it,
So you had
and
to
it
just switch
lit
out.
up, started smoking. I told him not to use it. It caught on fire. And I backhauled the amp here to Clifton. That night, Eric was playing here at the Iridium. In fact, you might have been working the show, fella.
One of us.
I
did.
mixed-
One, or
I mixed
was
it.
it Dennis?
I think he did.
Dennis
Yeah,
mixed
I
it?
didn't-
I didn't
I
remember
didn't-
which
yeah.
one of
That's
you.
where I've seen you then.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And
now.
next
That
thing I
makes
know,
sense.
I brought Andy in and we swapped out the amp. I backhauled the stinky burnt amp and
But yeah,
we just
you-
swapped it out. You
those-
don't get that in Europe.
Yeah, you
well,
don't.
not in the situation because
Not
it's
in
like
45 minutes.
because
You're
Europe
not
is
going
not
to get
that
it.
big, but it's also not that readily available to get from point A to point B.
No.
Yeah.
But also, again, it goes back to we talk about endorsements. It tells,
Right.
it is telling on certain companies that, like even with big corporate takeovers, that there are some companies that still, it's about personal
Relationship.
relationships.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Oh, without a doubt.
And it's not always about going with the biggest company.
Yeah.
Nope.
No.
No,
Or the
it's
company
not.
that always has the name. Especially starting somewhere. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh
You
yeah,
know.
but you can afford to even
Yeah,
get your name
Name
out there in the first place.
Right. And it's like, but it's also, we'll tell people it's endorsing. It's like, what are you doing? As much as, oh, I want this. Well, that's great if the company, you want this from the company, but what are you doing for them? That's going to, put value to them putting you.
It's the same thing with Nikon for me. For me, being Titanium Nikon Professional Services, hypothetically, I'm working a gig, a lens goes down. And it happens. I've lost a lens. And do you know, Overnight Air, and I have the best rep in the world, a shout out to J.C. Carey, best of there is and always will be, the next day, and he doesn't care where I am, he's not going to let me go without a lens. It will be there until, I'll have a replacement until mine's either fixed or I need to buy a new one, but they will always take care of me. I've never had a problem with them, and I have had a lens go down. I was in Los Angeles working with Michael McDonald, and I had a lens go down, fell out of the back of a pickup truck, and it was not good. It landed, glass
It's like
down,
a
and
used car. Just
it just.
Yeah, God,
when you think about
Yeah,
how much
I
hours
called
here,
NPS.
when you like, you just,
And I was like, there goes
Oh, listen, I've
$2,900.
I've lost bases.
Oh, yeah.
I've
You just
lost
wanna
the
be like-
bass. You know, I've lost gear. You're hurting.
Yeah,
know,
you hurt.
You're hurt.
It's
you know.
hurt.
But it's like everything moves on.
It's your
or you gotta-
tool.
Yeah,
You got to.
yeah.
You got to
It's
sell.
your tool.
You're selling gear to get other.
To
stuff.
other get new.
You
Yeah.
get
Hey,
better
Alex,
gear.
didn't I sell a Cartier watch because I needed another
Another
camera
camera.
body?
Another camera, and it's
I
like,
called
you know,
him Alex.
but
I
it's
was like,
like-
I
it's
just
the
sold my
reality.
Cartier. I needed another camera body.
Yeah, but
Wait,
you know, it's the reality.
did you make the money back?
Oh, yeah.
Of course,
10 times
that's
Hey.
why
over.
you do it.
Yeah, that's why
That's
you do
why
it.
you do it.
Exactly. That's why you do it.
Then
Exactly.
Then you upgrade.
Right.
You don't buy Cartier, you buy Rolex after that.
Exactly.
So
You
that's
upgrade
it.
after
Yeah,
that.
you go step up the
Yeah,
game.
Step
baby,
up.
you gotta give to get. You
Yeah.
know,
And-
totally.
It's sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
That's what it is.
So what's next for each of you? What's the 2020 and beyond? What do you want to do? What's the next moves?
To me, I guess people have often asked me, in fact, this year somebody asked me, is there an artist? Who do you want to, photograph next? I said, no one. Because I want to photograph whoever needs me and whoever's going to pay me so I can eat, pay my bills, have my roof over my head,
Fair enough.
fill my stomach
Fair
with
enough.
food, and
enough.
go on to the next. To me, I don't care how big some bands are, how small some bands are, and Alex turned me on to local music. He told me New York City has some of the finest talent in the world, and I've worked with the most talented New York acts ever. Okay, that blow the doors off of half of these bands out there.
And that's anywhere. It's like there's local talent anywhere, but I think it's the point of like people building that, and you're building your foundation. It's not always chasing after that big thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Bigger
because
is not
it
always
was
better.
because
Some of my
you know,
paychecks come from smaller artists, and it's not always rock. I don't discriminate. Anybody, Captain Save a Ho, well, this hoe does the same sort of thing. If you're writing me a paycheck, you're going to get the finest work that I put out. So, to me, I don't care what the music is.
Yeah.
I just care if I'm getting a paycheck. That's all I got to worry
I mean,
about.
and sorry to interrupt.
I
you.
don't have to like
Yeah.
the music.
Right,
And
right,
Alex
right.
has told me.
So you don't have
But,
to.
so 2020, you just gonna go bigger. That's it. You just
It's
want
either go big or go home. So for me, it's go big.
Oh, it's go big,
That's
let's
it.
go.
Just
Expand
going
that
bigger.
catalog. Just it's
Let's
go
go.
big or go home.
Exactly.
And
It's-
for me, it's just go big.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah,
Alex.
like I'm with Chronics this year.
Mm-hmm.
And
For the
it's
whole
already-
year.
I'm already booked for 2021.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Through to 2020.
I'll be seeing
Like,
Chronics
like,
myself.
with like not bragging because it's like I hate bragging.
Oh,
It's like
yeah.
facts are facts.
Facts,
like
facts,
I'll
baby.
use it like January of next year. I'm in New Zealand. I already know
Right.
that for a fact.
Ooh, that
You know.
27 hour.
Yeah, that 20.
And I'm booked out through the end of this year already. I have a few select dates, but anyone
got-
needs anything done, I do EPKs, right then and there.
And we'll have all your information in
Sure.
the summary.
Yeah,
You
so
know.
my schedule this year for me is my band John Mark's Express. We're finishing an EP recorded at the Cubby Hole.
And look for my work. And look for my work on that E
yeah,
EP.
we'll look for that work, and then I'm out with Chronics. That's a tour that's happening throughout the whole year, pretty much. He has a new
So-
record coming out.
He's doing all the major festivals.
Yeah.
Like I always see just these massive shows.
Oh yeah, right now these are one-off festivals that are pretty insane. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, are you serious right now?
They're
We're
huge.
doing 15,000-20,000
So
seaters.
he's doing a tour.
But he's getting ready to start. We're doing a tour.
Okay.
We're building up. We're doing pre-production of that now, finishing up, a few things to get that started. I'm building just built a playback rig, helped build a playback rig for that, designed that for that tour that's coming up for this stuff now.
Nice.
There's some off and on Living Color stuff that I'll be production with. But that's enough at a point, Then I'm actually putting more time into my own solo sound.
Nice.
Even like as I play bass, it's not a bass record. It's sounds. It's music. This is
And if you want to hear some of Alex's finest stuff, you can go on to my website. And if you look at my year-end closeout from a couple of years ago, the music and artist of the year was John Mark's Express. And Alex and John were very kind to me. And they gave me one of their tracks for And
for your
my year-end
gallery.
closeout,
Oh,
yes.
Mm.
And they were my artist of the year that year, and they custom wrote that song, and it went onto there. And you can go on my website and take a look and take a listen. And there's Aalics, and he's making all the noise.
They're making all the noise.
Woo!
Yeah. So my design for my own stuff now is it's kind of like a 3D sound. It's basically a quadraphonic textures of playing bass and with band and blah blah blah. It's taking the elements of what Living Color is doing and has done, and now with technology, because you can mix in 5-point, 5-point run surround sound or 7-point whatever, but taking that to a stage level now. So I'm working that out with a couple people, trying to do it. In process of writing music and doing doing a performance with a South African dance company. Where I'm writing the music for that, and we'll be solo performing, but then there'll be interpreted dance around that and what I'm doing. So,
will that be filmed, or is that an event?
It's
or
both.
All right.
We're writing into that both, so I'm going to take that opportunity.
Will that be here or in South Africa?
South Africa.
Ah, where
that's, I'm not really sure just yet.
Okay.
The details of that. So
fantastic.
These are things that are in the works. That
all right. Well, hey,
developing.
we'll put all your contact information
Most
in this summary as well, and they can.
And I'll tell you one person that Photography by Piernot does endorse, and I highly recommend to all of my clients out there, big, small, or otherwise, you need a stage manager. Aalics Bronson is the guy to come after Captain Sabo, and when he's available,
all things tick. I mean, you put together a playback rig.
You're not gonna find better.
But it's like learning some stuff. It's like again, it goes back to anybody can do anything. If you
take the time,
to learn it.
Learn,
and I just happen to love what I've learned.
And I do also.
When I can't play, I still around what I love to do.
Same thing with me. When
the technology and the music and everything else, and it all works together.
They help each other, right?
Well, let's put it this way: when you're watching TV, you're watching YouTube, you're watching anything. If music is visual now.
And I'm all about that because for me as a photojournalist, every picture tells a story.
It tells a story, and
right.
It's like music.
You
is
got to
now
get
visual.
that
Even
moment.
if you're not watching it,
right?
If you're listening to it, you're at a point of this. It has to be visual.
Yes, it does.
Because you're not gonna think about dancing in the tulips through the fields or whatever if it doesn't sound right.
That's right.
True.
That's right.
Period.
Yeah.
So my job is to make it sound good.
And that he does.
I mean, if that ain't the best way to end it, I mean, that's what we all want to do.
Right.
Make it look and sound good.
That's
a group thought. That's why we're doing this podcast, for more people that want to learn. What do we do? Who's the guy with the brown cowboy hat?
Right.
Who's the chick in front of the house?
Running around.
Who's the chick just taking 1,000 pictures at the first 3 songs?
Right.
All of that. So yeah.
Anybody really wants to learn, I also teach.
Oh.
Yes. I do teach, and I give one-on-one classes, and as long as you have the right gear, there's nothing I can't teach you that I don't do.
All right, let's go.
No excuses.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us. You guys are wonderful.
The Art of Music Tech podcast. I mean, we really spoke some true tech and how to go about it and how to think about it. Like, this is a whole meta experience. So.
And I'll tell you, there's no greatest pleasure than working with you and Dennis over the years. I mean, that was family. When you guys broke off and started your own company, I was all over that. Still am. And I'll tell you, anyone looking for a sound engineer, you guys were the best of the best that I've ever worked with. And I've worked with tons. And I highly recommend you guys. I mean, there's no question there.
Thank you.
True professionals.
Yes.
What it's about.
We just want to make it sound good, as Alex said, and look good, and all the creatives that make that happen. And we love talking to you guys, and you're local, so we have part 2, 3, 4, 5. We got to go to the cubby hole.
That's
do some on location.
That's it.
We got to go in. I mean, all the uncles are just 3 minutes away.
That's
it.
I mean, I gotta get the uncles into here. Like,
That's right.
We gotta cross.
We do.
Cross
and
mingle.
they're
And
doing
you
a
know
tour. They're
where to
getting ready
find
to do
me
a tour
for
too, so, by the
photos.
way.
Okay.
But
You
yeah,
know where
there's
to find
something-
me.
You gotta come by.
Yeah.
You gotta
Oh,
come by.
heck yeah. I mean, please. These.
That's it. This is family at this
This
point.
is all good. Again, thank you everybody for listening to the Art of Music Tech podcast. Thank you from Lisa, Aalics, Dennis, and myself, Fela. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, all of that good stuff. All of the links to Lisa and Aalics, it'll all be in the summary. Thank you so much for listening. Let's go.
Let's go.
For more information of booking 23DB Productions, visit their website at 23dbproductions.com. Like and follow 23DB Productions at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for the latest work.